Women's basketball is drawing more national attention than at any point in its history, but the coverage that comes with that attention is not applied evenly.
Olivia Miles do nothing. A little bit of Caitlin Clark treatment had people looking real funny in the light. She was complaining to the ref. Oh, they talk about Caitlin Clark complaining to the ref. Why is she talking to the ref so much? Oh, she complaining. Oh, she this. Oh, she that. What is this right here?
One player tends to draw sustained scrutiny for every misstep, while others are given far more room to struggle without the same level of examination. That imbalance showed up again this week, when one of the league's most talked about rookies had one of the roughest nights of her season, and the response from major sports media outlets was comparatively quiet.
Complaining to the ref, talking about Tiffany Hayes is doing too much, and all it is, like, come on now. Look, she looked like she ready to cry. She looked like she ready to cry. A little bit of real defense get played. They get a little bit physical, a little bit of double teams. Don't let you get switches and go one-on-one on the top of the key versus bigs and centers and all that. It look a little bit funny. Now, I love Olivia Miles, but at the end of the day,
Olivia Miles has been the story of the WNBA's rookie class this year. Selected by the Minnesota Lynx, she has spent the season proving she belongs in the same sentence as the league's most accomplished floor generals. Heading into a matchup against the Golden State Valkyries at Target Center, Miles was in the middle of an extraordinary run. Minnesota had won 16 of its previous 17 games, and over the 6-game winning streak that preceded the Golden State game, Miles was averaging roughly 21 points, 3.5 rebounds, 8 assists, and better than a steal a night. Those numbers had her firmly inside the conversation for both Rookie of the Year and Most Valuable Player. None of that reputation was built on hype alone. Early in the first quarter against Golden State, Miles passed Ticha Penicheiro for the second most assists ever recorded by a rookie in a WNBA season. Penicheiro set that mark in 1998 with the Sacramento Monarchs, and it stood as one of the league's more durable rookie records until Caitlin Clark broke it in 2024 with the Indiana Fever. Miles now sits directly behind Clark on that list. It is a meaningful marker of her feel for the game, and it came before the first quarter had even ended. The rest of the night did not follow the same trajectory. Golden State came into Target Center off 2 straight losses and needed a response. What they found was a game plan built around physicality rather than finesse. Instead of allowing Miles the space she typically operates in, the Valkyries defended her aggressively, mixed up their coverages, and worked to get the ball out of her hands as quickly as possible after every catch. Minnesota, already playing without Courtney Williams, had no answer for the pressure. By the final buzzer, the numbers told the story plainly enough. Miles finished with 8 points, 4 rebounds, 5 assists, and 4 turnovers in 28 minutes, shooting 3 of 12 from the field and 1 of 5 from three-point range. It was the second lowest scoring output of her rookie season. She was not alone in struggling. As a team, the Lynx shot only around 36% from the field and turned the ball over 17 times. Golden State, by contrast, committed just 6 turnovers of its own and converted Minnesota's giveaways into 21 points, largely off a zone defense that repeatedly disrupted passing lanes. Natasha Howard led the Valkyries' effort with 13 points and 7 rebounds, and Kayla McBride added 12. The final score, 80-66, snapped Minnesota's 6-game winning streak and cost the Lynx a chance to clinch the top seed in the Western Conference that night. Golden State improved to 26-11, while Minnesota fell to 31-8. Head coach Cheryl Reeve did not dodge the subject afterward, but she also did not treat it as a crisis. Speaking to reporters, she framed the performance as a normal and even necessary part of a rookie season, describing the disappointment Miles was likely feeling as something the team needed to go through together in order to grow. It was a measured response from a coach who has been through enough playoff runs to know that a difficult shooting night in August is rarely the full measure of a player. That measured tone is worth sitting with because it stands in contrast to how these nights are often treated when the player involved carries a different level of media profile. When Caitlin Clark has an inefficient shooting night, it tends to generate days of debate, breakdown segments, and think pieces about her readiness for the league. When a similarly hyped rookie has a rough outing against elite defensive pressure, the coverage tends to move on within a cycle or two. Whether that gap is fair is a legitimate question, and it is one worth asking honestly rather than assuming an answer. Attention follows storylines, and storylines follow ratings, but the players absorbing the most criticism are not always the ones having the worst nights. Miles' box score against Golden State was, by any reasonable measure, a difficult one. The relative quiet around it says something about which players the media has decided are worth dissecting in real time, and which ones are still being given the benefit of the doubt. What is not in question is the effectiveness of what Golden State did on the floor. Physical, ball denial defense aimed at a primary initiator is not a new concept in this league, But it works because it forces a player to make decisions under duress rather than in the rhythm they are used to. Miles built her reputation on vision and touch passing out of open space, the kind of reads that look spectacular when a defender is standing 2 feet off her. Against Golden State, that space disappeared. She was met early in her actions, forced into tighter passing windows, and pressured into the kind of low-percentage decisions that turn into live ball turnovers rather than assists. It is the same fundamental test every rising point guard eventually faces. What happens when the defense refuses to let you play your preferred game? There is also a practical lesson in this for the rest of the league. Basketball at every level is a copycat sport, and a defensive approach that neutralizes a player generating this much attention will not stay a secret for long. Other coaching staffs will study the tape. They will note how Golden State mixed its coverages, how quickly it got the ball out of Miles' hands, and how the Valkyries turned Minnesota's discomfort into transition offense on the other end. None of that guarantees the approach will work as well the next time it is tried. Reeves' own comments suggest the Lynx see this as useful information rather than a crisis, a preview of the kind of pressure Minnesota can expect if it meets a well-prepared defense again in the postseason. Facing that pressure once in the middle of the regular season is a very different proposition than facing it for the first time in a playoff series. None of this changes what Miles has already accomplished this year. A rough shooting night against a defense built specifically to disrupt her does not erase a season that has included a run of 16 wins in 17 games, an average near 21 points a night during that stretch, and a place in WNBA history just below Caitlin Clark on the all-time rookie assists list. Elite players are not defined by a single line in a box score. They are defined by how they respond to the version of basketball that opponents design specifically to beat them. Golden State gave the rest of the league a blueprint for making life difficult on a rookie point guard who has otherwise looked unstoppable. What remains to be seen is whether Miles adjusts to that blueprint the way the best players eventually do, and whether the coverage of her next few games reflects the same level of scrutiny that gets applied to the league's other headline names. For now, the record stands as it is. Minnesota remains one of the best teams in the league despite the loss. Golden State proved its defensive identity travels well on the road, and Olivia Miles has a data point she will almost certainly use. The larger conversation about who gets scrutinized and who gets the benefit of the doubt is not going away, and nights like this one are exactly the kind of evidence both sides of that argument will keep pointing to as the season moves toward the playoffs. The physicality on display was not confined to the matchup between Miles and Golden State's guards. During the first half, Lynx forward Napheesa Collier and Valkyries guard Tiffany Hayes were involved in an on-court altercation, a moment that underscored just how far Golden State was willing to go to disrupt Minnesota's rhythm. Collier has been the Lynx's anchor for years, and her willingness to get physical in response spoke to how personally the team took the way the game was being played. It also reinforced a larger pattern from the night. Golden State was not simply defending well in isolated possessions. It was setting a tone that extended to nearly every matchup on the floor. That tone did not come out of nowhere. Minnesota and Golden State have a playoff history that adds real weight to their regular season meetings. The two teams met in the first round of the 2025 postseason, when the Valkyries were still a first-year expansion franchise coming off a historic debut campaign of their own. The Lynx took Game 1 in a blowout at Target Center, but Golden State pushed back hard in front of its own crowd in Game 2, building a lead as large as 17 points and still leading by 14 entering the fourth quarter before Minnesota closed the series out with a comeback win. That series established Golden State as a legitimate threat rather than a typical expansion team, and it gave both rosters a shared history that showed up again in the way Monday's game was played. Minnesota's margin for error on this particular night was also thinner than usual. Guard Courtney Williams, who has averaged close to 14.5 points, 5 rebounds, and 4 assists a game this season, was ruled out with a foot injury suffered 2 days earlier in a win over Washington. Her absence removed one of the ball handlers who typically shares playmaking duties with Miles, leaving the rookie with even more responsibility than usual against a defense built to take the ball out of her hands. Napheesa Collier, back in the lineup after sitting out a prior game for rest, did what she could to fill the gap, but even her production was not enough to offset the turnover margin that decided the game. None of that changes the outcome, and none of it should be read as an excuse. It does, however, complete the picture of what Minnesota was working with when Golden State turned up the pressure. A rookie point guard missing one of her usual outlets, a physical Valkyries defense, willing to escalate into confrontation, and a turnover battle that Minnesota lost by more than 10 possessions all combined into one of the more difficult nights of the Lynx's season. How both teams carry that forward, especially if they meet again with a playoff spot on the line, is likely to say more about this rivalry than any single regular season result can.